What's going on, everyone? Mr. Ladd over here, and today I want to give you a kind of a tip how-to tutorial of how to sand a vehicle. Now, I don't have a full-blown pneumatic setup with a 6-inch interface pad with 6-inch sanding discs. So more so what I want to go over is not necessarily how to sand an entire vehicle. However, what we can go over is how to sand out scratches. It's very, very popular on YouTube and social media, seeing these YouTube detailers and everything, which I'm one of them, going over and taking a scratch on the panel, and they'll sand it down, and then they'll go ahead and maybe put some touch-up paint on it, and then they'll resand it again, and then they'll go ahead and go over the whole process and everything. And I understand that can be very intimidating for a lot of people. However, it's really not that intimidating, and although we're not going to do the actual paint touch-up process, what we're going to go over is basically how to spot sand. So what we're going to do is basically do a little section, okay? I'm going to show you just a little bit of a little section, which is what most people are going to do on their vehicle. Most of you are probably not going to fully wet sand your vehicle unless you have orange peel, or unless you just are really desperate and you want to give it a try. With that being said, teach his own, right? However, it's very, very simple. I'm going to show you how to do it with the tools that I have. And if you have these tools, it's going to be very easy. If not, you can go ahead and pick these tools up, okay? So, first off, we want to start off with 2000 grit sandpaper. Now, I have a headlight restoration kit and everything, so I'm not going to go out and buy sanding sheets, paper sheets of sandpaper. I've got sandpaper in 3-inch form. So I have an interface pad, which is what you'd put like on the drill, or you put right on the backing plate, and then I have the 3-inch sanding disc. So I've got 2000 right here. You can go 1500, however, I don't find it quite necessary. And then I have 3000 grit right here. Same thing, interface pad. We're going to go ahead and do it. We're going to follow up the sanding scratches with 2 different pads, 2 different polishes. So we're going to go ahead, and on the first pass, you can use wool if you have it, but if you don't have a wool pad, most people don't have wool pads because that's kind of more old school technology. Most people have gravitated towards these microfiber discs, and if you have one of these, they're perfect. So we're going to use a 5-inch Oreo pad from Buff and Shine. I'm going to follow up then with a 5-inch, kind of a heavy polishing pad. It's not really a polishing, like a light polishing. This is a little bit coarser, but it's not quite a compounding pad. It's not a cutting foam pad. I like this one. It's a good all-in-one pad, and it's going to be a great follow-up. Now, for the polishes or compounds or chemicals that we're using, we're going to go ahead, and the first step is we're going to use the Last Cut. So we're going to use the Last Cut from the Last Detail. It's a very, very aggressive cutting compound. I think it's perfect in these scenarios. It's great for spot polishing. I wouldn't go over a full vehicle with it unless you were going to go ahead and, like I said, you're doing wet sanding. But it's great for spot polishing and removing sand scratches. And then for our second step, once we do the polishing pad, we're going to use Angel Wax's Regenerate. This is a medium cut compound and soil remover. So this is one of those diminishing abrasives. Works very well with like an all-in-one. So basically, it's as aggressive as your pad is. Since we're using like a medium to heavy polishing pad, it's going to be aggressive enough. However, it's not going to mar the paint up. And then, of course, last but least, what everyone wants to know the most is what polisher are you using? I'm just using a simple 15-inch Bigfoot Rupes. Sorry, not 15-inch, 15 mil Rupes Bigfoot. Gets the job done. It's nothing special. It's not the most glamorous machine on the market. It's going to be one of the more affordable, higher-end DA polishers. So that being said, let's get to it. All right, first thing is first, we want to go ahead and make sure that the panel is prepped. And so I already have it washed, clayed, decon, and everything. If you have not washed, clayed, and decon and all that stuff, then you want to do that first because you don't want to be sanding over iron, makes extra grit. It's going to be more problematic. So, with that being said now, what are we going to sand? Are we just going to go ahead and do a straight, a strip? Now, what we can do is I'm going to mimic a little bit of what marring might look like. So, we'll take one of these bad boys and put a little bit of marring in the paint. Yep, that marred the paint just a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit. Really doesn't matter, right? That's not really what we're looking at. So, I'm going to go ahead and take my 3-inch sandpaper, and the objective when it comes to sanding is you want the surface to be as even as possible. Kind of like the concept of when you wax a vehicle, why a lot of people don't like paste waxes is because you can kind of have pulse points, or why people don't polish by hand anymore is you can put pulse points into the paint. We don't want to do that, so we want even coverage, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take my 3 fingers behind here, and I'm just going to go ahead and with moderate pressure, just go left to right. And as you see, instantly there are sanding scratches forming. As you can see, I'm still going at it. So you want to get till there's a point of kind of like an even consistency, an even white texture. And that's about good. If I go any more, then it's almost not necessary. You know what? I am going to go a little bit more. I'm going to see what you can see on the camera. Let's see. Okay, so even on the camera, you can see it looks pretty even. However, I want to make it as even as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and just one more time, I'm going to go over. Same thing, same concept, 3 fingers down. If you're using sanding sheets, I'd recommend getting a sanding block or something that you can make an even surface with so you don't have pulse points. Yeah, that looks about right. And at this point, if you were to have a scratch on a vehicle, that is pretty much where you want to be at. You would probably at that point see that the scratch is gone. That's what you're shooting for, is you don't want to see the scratch anymore. If there is a scratch, you don't want to see it. Because if you still see it with the 2000 grit, or if you go 1500, but my preference is 2000, if you still see it, then the scratch is still there. So when you polish it out, you're still going to see the scratch. So you really just remove clear coat for no reason. So once you do that with the 1500 grit, or the 2000, sorry, with the 2000, then you want to follow up with it with a less aggressive sandpaper. The reason why is because sanding scratches in their very nature are almost like holes in the dirt, right? If you think about it, you have the ground, and then you have a hole that's inside of it. Almost like the same concept of, or actually it's the exact same concept of scratches in your paint. All we did was make uniform scratches right here with 2000 grit. Now what we want to do is make smaller scratches to even it out. So we'll take the 3000 grit and we'll go over. Same thing, we want to go ahead and do the 3 fingers behind. And the objective is to even out the scratches. Now I am taking the surface area that I sanded with the 2000 grit. I'm taking that surface area and spreading out just a little bit. After I do a little bit, yeah, that looks good. That looks really good. Now what I want to do, just for the sake of consistency, I am going to go ahead with my 3000 grit, and now I'm going to go against the surface, okay? Now, the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that the scratches are as uniform as possible. So let's see where my surface area is. There you go. And another reason why I'm going over it with, 2000 and 3000 instead of going more aggressive is because I want there to be a smaller margin in between my sanding steps. I want there to be a much smaller margin. We're almost there. And we're getting to the point now where we've kind of leveled out. We've kind of leveled out the 2000 grit while I still see the 3000 around it, and there is an imbalance, I guess you can say. The objective is to bring down these scratches as much as possible, okay? So I'd say that's pretty good. You can sand just a little bit more. I actually do want to do one more pass, just as I'm looking at it. I want to go one more pass horizontally. I guess that's it. I don't know my directions. Horizontal, horizon. Yes, there you go. So I am just spreading out a little bit. And I know this might seem like overkill, all for a scratch, but you got to understand that the concept of wet sanding and sanding scratches, you got to think of it like in a body shop context. Oh, there you go. That looks so much better. So much better. The concept is you want to try to blend it as much as possible. If I just went ahead and took a drill brush to this little area and zoomed right there, and then followed up with a lighter sandpaper and zoomed in the same spot, you're going to see a big difference between that little spot and then the rest. However, I started with 2,000, then I fanned out more with the 3,000, and then when I polish, I'm going to go ahead and spread out more for each step. So you'll see that by the time we're done polishing, we're going to cover probably somewhere around this much of the panel. So with that being said, kind of what I think most people are wanting to see now is a tape difference, a tape line. Now this is kind of a dumb thing to do, a tape line for such a small area, but I want you to understand and I want you to see the fact that you can sand this out. I'm sorry, that you can polish out the sand. I'll polish out most of it. However, I do want to leave a little bit of margin so you can see clearly the before and the after. So the first thing we're going to do is we have our polisher plugged in. Make sure it's plugged in. Yep, plugged in. I'm going to attach my 5-inch Oreo pad. I cleaned it out not too long ago, so I'm just going to make sure there's no water. There we go. There we go. That's probably another video we should do, is over cleaning pads. Now I have the last details, the last cut. Once again, a really great compound. Of course, if you're into like 3M or whatever you're into, that's fine too. You use whatever you've got. If you have anything, whatever. I'll leave the links to what I'm using. However, use what you got. So I'm gonna go ahead and spread out. I'm gonna start off on a speed setting 1, just so I can have good even coverage and good spread, and you'll see how this works. Okay, now I'll kick up the speed. I'm at a 5 right now. And I can already see that the sanding scratches are leaving. And that's one of the reasons why you want to take it down to a 3,000 grit instead of just leaving it at 2,000. Could you polish out 2,000? Oh, of course you could polish that out. But when you take it down to 3,000, it makes the polishing process so much easier. And also, if you did get any pulse points in the 2,000, if you improperly sanded, then, it makes it a little bit easier in that regard. So, doing the crosshatch. You don't have to do crosshatch, however, I prefer it when working with the DA. It's not completely necessary, but whatever. Now, since this is a DA, not a rotary, well, even a rotary, you don't want to hold it aggressively, but you just think of it smooth. You want the pad to move freely. You want it to be even. You want it to be smooth. You want the machine to do the work for you. You don't want to have to work for the machine. And I'll do one more pass. Okay, now I'm going to take out a microfiber, remove the excess, check out my work. Yeah, just by the tape line there seems to be a little bit of sanding scratches there. That's usually how that works when it comes to tape lines. Rotaries get a little bit better up against the tape, but this looks pretty good right now. Flawless for what it's supposed to be. I don't see scratches, only minor marring, which is exactly what you want. Now next, I'm going to follow up with a foam pad, my, like I said, medium to heavy polish foam pad to make sure it's clean and not wet. There you go. Got a little moisture there. Depending on the polishes that you use, it may not be a big deal to have a little bit of moisture in your pad. With this stuff I'm using, it's not a big deal. However, you see that there gets water on the panel, and I don't care for that too much. So it doesn't hurt it, but I just don't care for it. Now putting this on the pad, you know, 5 to 5.5 dots. Got that. My nephew's out here watching SpongeBob. Here you go. All right. Now, I'm going to do the same thing, but you notice how with the 2000 grit, we had a good even line. The 3000 grit, we spread out a little bit more. With the compound, we went ahead and went to about here. Now, the polish, we're going to go out even further, and we're going to get more of the panel for that blending I was talking about. Okay, now that it's settled in, it's spread out, it's good, even. All right, I'm gonna bring it up to about a 4, maybe a 5. Let's do 5. Now there's still a little too much moisture in my pad. Some of the polish is flinging out, but that's just the name of the game. It is what it is. It's not gonna hurt anything. You call me a hack, that's okay, I am a hack, but when it comes down to it, it's not going to hurt the result. Since this is a diminishing abrasive, it looks like the polish is breaking down pretty well. The more that I'm working with it, the more that it breaks down, which is what you want. You want the product to do what it's supposed to do. I could probably do another pass, however. There we go. Yep. Now I'm just being silly. Once again, you have too much moisture in your pad. This is what happens. It's not a big deal. It's not going to hurt anything. But, you know, that's what you deal with. And it makes it a little bit harder to remove, but it's insignificant. Just have good towels, which I don't, but whatever. So we're going to remove this. That's another thing about having too much moisture in your pad, is it makes it, like I said, a little bit harder to remove the compound or the polish. So, you know, if you have a bucket of waterless wash or something like that, that would definitely help you there. There we go. There we go. Oh man, that's the finish you want. That's good stuff right there. All right, so I'm gonna take you out, or let's take off the tape first. There we go. Now we can see that beautiful tape line. Probably move this panel too much while working. I'll take you off the panel, or take you off the tripod, and let's take a look at our work here. So, as you can see, there's a very clear line of demarcation. That's what we did not polish out as far as the sanding scratches. That's what we did polish out. A little bit of swirls here. I could probably just wipe down a little bit more. So, but the biggest thing is making sure that there is no, oh, that's what, look at that. That's a plain, I thought that was swirls right there. Or, I thought that was some residue on the panel. Nonetheless, as you can see, we have, you want to see around the sun right there. If you look around there, you'll see if there's any scratches or anything. And I got to be honest, we're doing really good here. We're doing really good, really good. Well, guys, pretty simple, right? Don't need to freak out about it. When it comes down to it, You just need a few good things. You need a decent polisher. You don't need the best one in the world. If you use a Max Shine, that's fine. The Chicago DAs, I don't know if I would use those. You might want to stay away from them, but you know, they seem to be getting better as the years go on, so that might help out for you. Nonetheless, what you really need is a decent polisher. You want a good compound. This is the one that I like. You can use whatever one as long as it's a good compound, right? This is a great polish to follow up here. It's a great all-in-one product as well. We can talk about this on its own. You're going to need a heavy cutting pad. So this microfiber Oreo pad is going to do great. That kind of mimics wool a little bit, but not as aggressive. But you still need to follow up, which is why we used the heavy polishing, the medium to heavy polishing pad. And then, of course, you know, in order to start this all, you do need the 2000 grit and the 3000 grit sandpaper. And I mean, this is trivial. You don't need that. I just did that for the video. But once again, guys, it's the system is so easy. That's why I do recommend you maybe get a hood. I got this hood from a local body shop. They just get rid of these things for free, right? They just take up space. They gave it to me for free, and I'm blessed because I got a nice black, metallic black one. It works really good. But guys, thank you so much for tuning into the channel. If you have any suggestions to make my system a little bit better, please let me know in the comment section below. If you learned anything in this video, or if maybe this video has given you the courage to go out there and do this yourself, let me know in the comment section below. But once again, Mr. Ladd signing out. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel one more time, and I'll see you guys next time.